Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, as you know, we have opened up a request line so that if you guys got ideas for videos, all you need to do is click on that link right there. And along the way, we've gotten some really good ideas for some videos. We've gotten a lot of other ideas that are more appropriate for, like, short questions, short answers. And there's some really good questions. What I did today is I gathered up just a handful of questions, the ones that I see to be popping up with some frequency. And we're going to give you the answers today because, well, here at Washington Gun Law, that's what we want to do. We just want to educate you so that you can be the lawful and responsible gun owner. So today, we answer some of our viewers' questions. Okay, like I said, getting some fantastic ideas for videos. I actually got one that we're working on right now, doing the final editing touches on. It's a really good one, I actually think. Again, if you got video ideas, you got questions, things like that, click on that link right there. We will try to see what we can do to get you some of the answers. I'm going to go through a handful of questions today. A lot of them have to do with the same issue. Many of them are going to really pertain to the hometown crowd here in Washington State. As you know, our laws have been nothing but a moving target for the last few years, and many Washington residents still are confused as to what's going on. Our first question comes from Abel M. The question I have is, if you already own a semi-auto rifle, such as an AR or an AK, can I still register it as a short barrel rifle in Washington State? Abel, it's a really good question. The answer is that if this is a grandfathered in firearm, this is a firearm that was lawfully possessed by you prior to the enactment of our assault weapon ban, and you now want to retrofit that firearm, shorten the barrel and things like that, are you still allowed to fill out a Form 1 and put it through the NFA? The answer is yes, you are. There is nothing in Washington state law that prohibits you from doing that. There's nothing under the NFA that prohibits you from doing that. My concern will be is that the ATF has a tendency to reject Form 1s if they believe the item would actually be unlawful in your home state. But that would be a clerical error on the part of the ATF, one that you may or may not be able to solve. But the bottom line is there is nothing in the RCWs that prohibits you from converting a lawfully owned semi-automatic rifle into a short barrel rifle so long as you comply with all requirements of federal law. David B. asks, as a truck driver, I'm having a hard time finding a clear answer on whether you can possess a firearm in a commercial vehicle legally. Okay, David B., first of all, there is no federal law that says commercial truck drivers cannot possess firearms inside their truck. Secondly, there is no law in the state of Washington that says that firearms are prohibited inside a commercial truck. Now, in order to carry firearms legally loaded inside the vehicle in Washington State, you need a valid concealed pistol license. Some states are constitutional carry. If you are a long-haul trucker, which means you're crossing multiple state lines, and you want to actually carry the firearm loaded and ready for use in the cab of your truck, you're going to need to consult with each attorney in those jurisdictions. Now, we did this video right here a couple years ago. And this is the big beef I have with the trucking industry is, although there is no law on a federal level, and there's no law that I'm aware of on a state level that prohibits the possession of firearms in commercial trucks, most commercial trucking companies, as a condition of your employment, will prohibit you from defending yourselves or arming yourself in the event of self-preservation. And that is a big beef that I have with the trucking industry because this is a dangerous job. It's a dangerous job because you're out on the roadway all the time. And candidly, the place in which you're most likely going to come into armed conflict is not in your home. It's not in your backyard. It's not even at your grocery store. It's actually out on the roadway. So bottom line is, no law that I know of, but you might want to check with your employer because I bet they have a policy. Mike N. I am in the process of buying land and possibly moving to Lewis County, Washington from Portland, Oregon. I currently own a few weapons and several LCMs, large capacity magazines, that I believe would be banned by the Washington State Assault Weapons Ban. Could you make a video telling me what options would be legal? And then also we had a similar question from Basil S., who asked, I'm moving to Washington. Can I legally bring my assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that I already own moving from Wyoming into the state? Also, does the Washington ban only count once I become a Washington resident? Can I keep my Wyoming residency and stock up before I'm fully settled in? Okay, to both Mike and Basil, the bad news for you is this, is that under Senate Bill 5078, which was our high-capacity magazine ban, now codified in RCW 9.41.370, and then House Bill 1240, which was our assault weapon ban, and now codified in RCW 9.41.190, the importation of assault weapons or high-capacity magazines is unlawful. And since your intent is to come into the state and establish residency, to establish a domicile here in this state, then if you were to bring those items with you, under the law, you are in violation of it. For each assault weapon, it is a gross misdemeanor offense. For each large capacity magazine, it is a gross misdemeanor offense. So, unfortunately, the importation of those items into this state are not permitted. RCW 9.41.010, the definitional section of Washington's Firearm Code, specifically defines import as, import means to move, transport, or receive an item from a place outside the territorial limits of the state of Washington and to place it inside the territorial limits of the state of Washington. Import does not mean situations where an individual possesses a large capacity magazine or assault weapon when departing from and returning to Washington state, so long as the individual is returning to Washington in possession of the same large capacity magazines or assault weapons the individual transported out of state. So, Basil, there is no prohibition on you owning semi-automatic rifles. There is just a prohibition on you bringing them into the state of Washington. Now, if you maintain a home in Wyoming as well, and you chose to stock up and leave your collection there and await for this to be overturned by the United States Supreme Court in the summer of 2025, there is clearly nothing unlawful about that because, well, in Wyoming, they let you live free like an American. Tom S. asked, is it legal to take a home-built, unserialized firearm to a public range now? Also, with the assault weapon ban, how do we legally get parts for repairs? Well, that's an interesting two-part question, Tom. Let's start with the first part, okay? Can you take an unserialized firearm to the range, an untraceable firearm to the range? Well, first of all, I've been to a lot of ranges, and I have yet to be to a range where any rangemaster inspected my firearm, recorded the serial numbers, and ran a trace on it to make sure that I was lawfully possessing that firearm. Never seen it once, okay? The second thing you need to be aware of is that under RCW 9.41.010 subsection 52, Washington has a very unique definition for untraceable firearm. It reads, untraceable firearm means any firearm manufactured after July 1st, 2019 that is not an antique firearm and that cannot be traced by law enforcement by means of a serial number affixed to the firearm by a federal firearms manufacturer, importer, or dealer in compliance with all federal laws and regulations. Which means that if you have an untraceable firearm that was manufactured prior to July 1st, 2019, by definition in Washington state, that's not an untraceable firearm. So can you? Yes. Should you? Well, that depends on your comfort level and how much you trust your range. But again, I have never been to a range yet where the rangemaster demanded to see the serial numbers on my firearm so that he could run a trace. Now, Tom, as for the second part of your question, AR parts, AK parts, there seems to be a great deal of disagreement between FFLs about whether or not they can sell parts. Every FFL that I have consulted with in the state of Washington, I have advised that I believe it is okay, it is lawful to sell parts as long as that part does not include a lower receiver. Now, there are some FFLs who simply do not trust this Attorney General, and for good reason, and they're not willing to take that risk. However, there are many, many very reputable FFLs in this state that are selling these sorts of parts. The disputed portion of the statute, that is in RCW 9.41.010, when we're trying to define what constitutes an assault weapon, there is this language: a conversion kit, part, or combination of parts from which an assault weapon can be assembled, or from which a firearm can be converted into an assault weapon if those parts are in the possession or under the control of the same person. Now, as I read it, the only part from which we could actually assemble an assault weapon would be a lower receiver. And there is no doubt that the sale of lower receivers for assault weapons or semi-automatic rifles in the state of Washington is prohibited currently by law. There is no doubt about that. But let us remember this. If we could not buy any replacement parts for any of our grandfathered in firearms, knowing that these are all friction instruments, knowing that parts wear down, knowing that barrels wear down, knowing that triggers break, knowing that optics need to be replaced, knowing that sometimes we just like to reconfigure our firearms for better proficiency. If we were not allowed to purchase parts in the state of Washington, then every grandfathered firearm would ultimately result in an unconstitutional taking the moment it breaks down, because the minute it breaks, there is going to be absolutely positively no way in which you could repair that firearm. And as evil as this state is, and it is very evil, we do not believe that was the intent right now of the legislature. So Tom, check around, because you're going to find a lot of very reputable FFLs I know out there that are selling these parts. I know that some of the online manufacturers are a little unwilling to ship, but again, that has to do with their complete paranoia over our Attorney General. Well, listen, I get that gets some of those questions answered. I know many of you had similar questions to that because I saw these questions over and over and over. Remember, if you got some questions or you got a video idea for Washington gun law, you click on that link right there and you let us know, because like I said, some of the best ideas we ever had weren't really our ideas to begin with. Listen, if you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now, but if you don't, that information is down there in the description box. And then finally, let's everybody remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.